Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the VRRC for the latest round in the VRRC Porsche Cup Championship. We're getting down to the business end of the season now, just 3 weeks of racing left, and the championship leader, Carl Felvers, looking to try and further extend his margin here tonight. Andy McEwen and Jack Oliphant, as always, here to talk you through all of the action, and action aplenty. We had a week ago, Jack, when we raced at Oulton Park, a circuit that many said would produce processional racing. In the end, it produced anything but.
Yeah, it sort of went away from its reputation, really, and it was very exciting indeed, and a fair bit of controversy that went along with it. But, it's VRRC. We wouldn't be here without controversy, would we? We love it as commentators. Not sure Rich loves it, to be honest. But anyway, yes, Joel Lask came away with the most amount of points, although he was deep in the controversy. He, as it stands, does come away with the most, so he was the biggest gainer. Nicky Taylor with the second place, and Josh Martin with a bit of a return to form. This is, of course, in the GT3 category. Carl Felvers came away with the driver of the round, so big congratulations to him. But it was nice to see the likes of Josh Martin and Joel Lask finally get themselves together with this Porsche GT3. But of course, if you've been paying attention to the last couple of weeks, that's not the only category we've got here at the Porsche Cup. We've also got the GT4, and Ben Smith, the shock horror, is the driver who came away with the most amount of points in that one. Paul Laramie in the second place. Again, not a big shock to anybody who's been watching. And Chris Blakey, although it was a little bit more of a contest between for the third place lineups in the Porsches, with the likes of Sam Milner and Chris Blakey and Kenny Press at one point, all fighting it out for that particular honour. But Ben Smith is continuing his domination, and Andy, I think that bleeds into the championship.
It does, yes, although a little birdie tells me he's not looking quite as strong in the practice sessions for this week. So it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on tonight. This is how the championship looks, though. As you can see, that super consistent run from Carl Felvers sees him now further extending that championship margin. He's the only driver to have finished in the top 5 in every race so far. That is really remarkable. 10 races and 10 top 5 finishes. Jay Warren has been a touch less consistent, but on his day has been actually just as quick. He's got the same number of race wins as Carl Felvers, 2 wins to his credit, but those wins have been his only podium finishes. So Jay Warren needs to try and just build a bit more consistency into his driving to try and really challenge for the championship lead. A win for Nicky Taylor last time out means that he is now 3rd in the championship, only 5 points adrift of Jay Warren, with Elliot Dalton-Ayres a further 9 back in 4th, and Eric Axelson, who didn't race with us last week at Oulton Park, still inside the top 5 courtesy of drop scores. Theo Mercuris still not racing with us. He's down in 6th place and will continue to drop, likely behind Joel Lask, who was the on-the-road winner of both races last week, but a penalty in race 1 saw him finish down in 4th and 6th, 7th in the points ahead of Josh Martin, Andy Dorman and Andy Carroll rounding out the top 10. Then we move to GT4, where the Cayman Championship is still very much alive, actually. Ben Smith as you can see, has been doing an awful lot of winning. He did have those 2 race wins taken away from him at Croft, though, and his nearest championship rival, Paul Laramie, inherited them. And then Paul had a bit of a disappointing round at Oulton last time, a 2nd and a 4th place finish after a couple of off-track incidents, but that becomes his drop score. So he's 30 points back and looks a little bit more competitive so far here at Snetterton. Chris Blakey sits in 3rd place, and he's at the head of what should be a fairly entertaining battle, actually, for the last place within the top 3. Sam Milner only 9 points behind him, and those two have been trading the podium finishes. John Jones sits in 5th ahead of Mark Stokes, Kenny Press, and Darren Butler to complete the GT4 runners. So we head tonight into a very different kind of circuit, Jack, to the one that we raced out a week ago. The Snetterton circuit is a track that drivers seem to either love or hate, and I'm intrigued to know which side of that argument you sit on.
Well, I love it, and I think everybody knows why at this point, so I'm not going to go banging on about how I took my first ever race win there. But no, it's as flat as a pancake, which is one of the biggest differences, isn't it, between the likes of Brands Hatch and Oulton Park. It sort of provides a very different challenge. It's also one of the longer circuits that we've got here in the UK, if you basically ignore Silverstone, because obviously that's longer than everything we've got. So, but it's got some really interesting corners as well. Bombhole's a fantastic opportunity to get a good run through there and go into Corham, overtaking them to Murray's, Brundle and Nelson under the bridges. We're probably going to be saying time and time again, another dive bomb opportunity, basically. And of course, Montreal and Agostini, both hairpins, heavy braking zones. Always exciting when they go through there. Ritchie's a key corner and also a very difficult first corner as well, because it's sort of one of those medium speeds when they get off the line. It's going to be difficult to see who might have to, with those cold tyres, who understeers, who oversteers, and who can get into Montreal the best, basically. So it's going to be an interesting one, but for all of that, to make sense of all of it, Andy is now going to take you through a lap of it in the GT4 and the GT3.
So the Snetterton 300 circuit, a really technical challenge no matter what car you find yourself at the wheel of, but it starts with a full commitment, double apex right-hander, 5th gear through Riches. There's a bit of positive camber there, which means you can carry an extra mile an hour or so than you think you can. The same is not true, though, of the Wilson hairpin. Hard on the brakes, down into 2nd gear, not 1st gear, because you want to try and control the wheel spin on corner exit, because it's a fairly long and quite steeply uphill run into the left-hander at Palmer's. This is a really tricky corner. It's got negative camber on the way in, and then you come through a bit of a compression in the exit. The car grips up, and you try and get a good exit down the hill into Agostini's, one of the best overtaking opportunities on the circuit. A late apex typically is the best way through here, and again, difficult to try and control the wheel spin on corner exit. Then into the short shoot into the awkward left-hander at Hamilton's, deceptively quick 4th gear you can see there in both cars. Get the car back over to the left-hand side of the road into another really tricky right-hander at Oggie's that seems to go on and on and on and on forever. It opens up eventually to lead into another right-hander at Williams. Ride the curve on the inside to rotate the car, and then plant that right foot down on the floor and don't even think about moving it until you get to that bridge off in the distance. This is the Bentley Straight. It used to be the longest straight in British motorsport before the 300 reconfiguration. Then down on the brakes, braking whilst on a turn, over the brakes, through the left at Brundle, over the curb at Nelson. It's over in a flash, but it could so easily ruin your lap in just the blink of the eye. Flat out, just about, I'd imagine, through the bomb hole, maybe a bit of a comfort lift on the way in, and then into the never-ending right-hander at Corham. There are several different ways that you can attack this corner, but as long as you're on the right-hand side of the road on the exit, that's fine. It means you're on the right line into the left-hander at Murray's, which was designed to promote more overtaking, but actually, it's really single file through there. A good exit required down the long centre straight, the blast past the pits, and that is a lap of the Snetterton 300 circuit. Plenty of places to overtake, but plenty of places to make mistakes too. So that is the Snetterton 300 layout then. We're into qualifying now, we will be very shortly. And as we saw there, Jack, a really technically demanding circuit and lots of mistakes, even actually on those on-board laps that we were showing, trying to get the cars into and out of some of these low-speed corners. You'd think the low-speed corners are the easy ones, Jack, but in cars this powerful, that's not the case.
No, I love the ever so slight shade there thrown at Richard's driving. He, of course, did the hot laps. Well, actually, normally, to be fair, Eric Axelson weighs in on them as well. But yeah, it is a fantastic circuit. It's really hard. As you said a couple of times there, actually controlling the wheel spin in these GT3s is going to be the biggest problem that all of these drivers have, because there's quite a few slow speed corners. And I do remember that it's sort of touring cars the rear-wheel drive really does favour Snetterton in quite a lot because, of course, coming out of those slow corners, that's where the rear-wheel drive gets the traction off. But anyway, don't have mixed front wheel and rear wheel in this class, so it's going to be all or nothing for all of these drivers. And as they're coming out of Murray's, it's such a key corner, isn't it? But like you mentioned, such a hard entry going into it. The exit of Coram going into Murray's, a couple of ways you can attack it. I always used to like to sort of end up sort of lifting and coasting towards the end of Coram so you could break that a little bit later and everything was just a little bit smoother. I did have an H-pattern gearbox though, so it's a little bit different to see how these guys crack on with it. But it's always difficult, and that can, as you said, make or break a lap.
But it's one of those things, there are two places on this track where you have to brake whilst turning and then get the car to go back the other way again. And that is really difficult to do. I can only half understand that because I've never driven a car in real life, but it's all about the weight shifting, isn't it? And transferring the weight from the front to the back, from the left to the right, all in the sequence of a couple of corners. When the car is braking, it's really, really unstable, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Realistically, if anybody's not familiar with how the car physics work, it's very basically when you brake, all the weight goes forward, and when you accelerate, all the weight goes backwards. And a car is happiest when all the weight is right in the middle. That's why whenever anybody gets any ballast or anything, they like to keep it central to the car. That's why the McLaren P1, for instance, back in the day, or the old fastest production car in the world, all the weight was in the middle, even the seat and the driver, to try and give it the best performance and everything like that. So you do want to keep it all nice and neutral. And when we're going into corners, like you've just been saying, Andy, where you're braking and turning, all the weight is going over the front left or the front right. And that causes a very unhappy rear end. And Porsches already have a fairly unhappy rear end. So you really don't want to upset them anymore. You don't want to antagonize them any more than you used to. So, yeah, it's all very, very important to keep it nice and neutral. And that's why I did used to lift a little bit, because that neutralizes the car and that makes everything a little bit easier and a little bit slower. You can get a better exit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I say this from a very qualified position, having never driven a racing car in my life, but I really do think that understanding that weight transfer is probably the most important thing when it comes to really extracting the most out of a car. And it's something maybe people don't realise really until they've done it either for real or spent a lot of time in the sim, because sims like Assetto Corsa really do simulate that very, very well indeed. Right then, who is wrapping their head around all of this the best is the next question. Well, right now it is Joel Lask, not this man, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, but a driver in a very similar looking car, because the Phoenix Sim Racing cars are running in tandem out there and both going pretty quickly. Lask is fastest, Dalton-Ayres third fastest, and Nicky Taylor in between them. So quite a similar running order at the moment, really, Jack, to the one that we had at Oulton Park, especially when you look back at Jay Warren and Kyle Felness, neither of whom at the moment look to have the ultimate pace.
No, you're absolutely right. I will just finish off my thought, because you mentioned something there about being in the sim or the real life. It's actually more impressive, in my opinion, to learn it in the sim, the whole weight distribution thing, because in real life, you can feel it all when it's happening. You can feel when the weight's neutral. You can feel when you're getting pressed forward because of G-forces and all that sort of thing. In the sim, you don't really get that sensation. So that's why it's very impressive what these guys are doing. And there's a big reason why real drivers can't just instantly jump into the sim and be instantly fast, because you don't get any other sensations. Anyway, ignoring that for the time being, we talked about that. You're right, Joel Lask and Elliot Dalton-Ayres were the two drivers and really the team that were absolutely rapid at Oulton Park. I don't know what boost button they've found on their steering wheel, but whatever they're pushing, it's absolutely working. Nicky Taylor, I didn't think actually Nicky Taylor was that fast at Oulton Park, whereas here he's actually started to turn the speed on. Nicky was just right place, right time, wasn't he, consistently? Yeah, Jay Warren being ahead of Kyle Felness is quite important, but again, Kyle doesn't look like he's going to be dropping that much points in terms of the speed just yet.
No, indeed not, but it's going to be interesting to see how that develops as we go further into the rest of qualifying. But yeah, we've got a very, very close running order, given the length of the lap. On the screen now, on the left-hand side, you've got the top 8 of them covered by less than 7/10 of a second. Lask clear by 2/10 of a second, and Dalton-Ayres only a further 0.5 or so back. So yeah, going to be interesting to see if that continues. We just had a purple sector at the end of the previous lap for Elliot Dalton-Ayres, but he had a bit of a moment earlier in the lap, I think, which meant that lap time ultimately was not an improvement. Right, what about the GT4 class then, I wouldn't know? Well, Ben Smith is the fastest. Paul Laramie third quickest at the moment, but I think there was some talk of Paul perhaps joining the session late, so he might not have done as many laps as his rival. But Ben Smith continuing on his way, but it's going to be interesting to see whether he's got the consistency over a race run, because the spies who have been watching some of the practice runs before we went live say that he was looking a tad erratic, and actually getting consistency around such a long and technically demanding lap as the Snetterton 300 circuit, that can be a real challenge, Jack.
Yeah, well, actually, that's a good point. We haven't really visited that many tracks that are as long as this. To be fair, I wasn't here for the first 3 rounds, so you may well have done. But when you're doing these sort of length runs, in qualifying, you still only have the same amount of time in qualifying, yet you get a lot less laps. And there's a lot more corners to mess up, effectively. So it is quite a more high-pressure situation. So, yeah, if you can't quite get the consistency, you are going to struggle a little bit. And Ben Smith there, you can see him just through Hamilton. I don't know whether that was a sort of a camera angle thing or whatever we're seeing, but it was a little bit of a kick out of the rear end. Now, sliding the rear end is not the end of the world in one of these cars. It gets the car turned a little bit sooner, and if you can control it on the power, it's a quick way to drive it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a particularly consistent way to drive it, though, and you will be chewing up those rear tyres. Over the course of a race, that might come back to bite him, because, of course, it's a 25-minute race, not just a 20-minute or a 15, which has meant that a couple of people have been caught out with that tyre wear, and that even fuel, actually. Last week, we saw a couple of people running out of fuel. Here is Eric Axelsson jumping up from 7th into 4th. Wasn't here last week. Andy, was he? Eric, which we missed, unfortunately. Josh Martin, his teammate, did do quite well without him, but I'm sure he'll be a bit relieved to have him back.
Yeah, absolutely. Although he's showing him up a bit at the moment, isn't he? Axelsson, as you said, moving to 4th. Josh Martin stuck down in 9th. But yeah, good to have Eric back. He's been able to sort of fall back upon his drop scores a little bit. That obviously becomes his drop score now. I think the championship is probably a bit of a long shot for Eric, but he could certainly move up into the top 3, maybe even the top 2. He's only 22 points behind Jay Warren, who is out qualifying at the moment. Remember, Jay sits 2nd in the championship standings. Warren down to 6th now, so he's been beaten not only by Axelsson, but also by Kyle Felvis in this session. And did not improve on his most recent lap either, Jay Warren. So Jay in a bit of strife, and we are getting towards the end of the 15-minute session. So limited opportunities now left for drivers to try and find any improvements. Out of Williams goes Eric Axelsson, then pushing hard. One of the sector times looking like not improving at the moment. Nicky Taylor behind him likewise. And in fact, Eric's bailed out of this lap anyway. Pulls over to the side, lets through Nicky Taylor and Kyle Felvis. So Kyle Felvis worth watching here. I think Taylor, of course, is gunning for pole. Kyle Felvis, the championship leader, in behind him, is looking to try and move up from 5th position. He would be sharing at the moment the 3rd row of the grid with his big championship rival. He's been getting a bit of a toe, I think, on this lap from Nicky Taylor. Not really working, though. He's not improved in the 1st sector, has Kyle Felvis. The 2nd sector time is about to come through, and I don't think that's going to be an improvement either. And then the 3rd sector of the lap is basically just the run down the pit straight. Taylor has improved, though, in, sector number 2. So what can he do then? Across the line, can Nicky Taylor snap pole position away? The answer is no. It's a 47.768. So it was an improvement there slightly. And Carl Felvis did improve at the end of the lap, up into 3rd position. So Carl Felvis then up to 3rd, and he'll be very, very pleased with that indeed. Ben Smith, meanwhile, looks on course for the GT4 class pole position. He is 1.5 seconds clear of Chris Blakey. But what is Paul Larrabee doing? Well, he's not improved in Sector 1, and so it looks as though he's going to have to settle for 3rd on the grid. Can he maybe find that, well, less than 1/10 of a second that he needs to move ahead of Chris Blakey and get onto the front row of the Cayman class? He could do with that, really. Of course, pole position is worth points in this championship. 1 point, I believe, for pole position. So Ben Smith taking that, and Paul Larrabee is not going to challenge because he's heading for the pit lane. Anybody else improving, I wonder? Elliot Dalton Ayres is on a lap, but not improving in the sectors. So I think Joel Lask pretty safe now on the class pole position within the GT3 category, and will therefore be able to hear from him and Ben Smith in just a couple of minutes' time. Welcome back, everybody. With qualifying done here at Snetterton, we've got our two pole sitters joining us in the commentary box to chat about what's been a pretty perfect start to the evening for them, although certainly in the GT3 class, not a lot to choose between the top two in the qualifying session. Joel Lask getting the pole position by 64 thousandths of a second. And Joel joins us now. Joel, another week, another pole position, another quick car that you've got clearly underneath you. Feeling confident ahead of tonight's two races?
Yeah, I'll say so. Pace is quite good. Obviously, everyone's separated by a very small amount, so we'll have to see how that goes. But it's a very tight, twisty track, so we'll have to see where people can pass and where they can't, I suppose.
Well, yeah, there are places where you can overtake here, and given how close behind you Nicky and Carl were in the times, it's not that likely maybe that you're going to be able to escape out in front. So are you expecting to have to defend into a couple of those big breaking points, at least until you sort of get your head down?
Yeah, I think so. Tyres take a little while to come on as well. To be honest, there's people with faster times in the practice sessions, so I think I just got lucky with a quick outlap on that one. But yeah, I think we'll have to see.
Well, yeah, it's going to be, again, an interesting start to the race, and hopefully you'll be able to net yourself another win. You got one in the end out of Oulton Park last time. Arguably should have been two, but cars like that should help with tyre wear as well. And a couple of wins, you could put yourself right back into contention, at least for a top three place in the championship, couldn't you?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, to be honest, I thought the championship was sort of over and done with for me. I've had some poor races at the start of the season, but yeah, cars started to come to a little bit now, so we'll have to see what we can do and see what race two brings us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Joel, very best of luck. Qualifying only half the job, as you well know, but looks like you've got good pace in tonight's two races, so best of luck for the first one.
Cheers, appreciate it.
So that is Joel Lask, who is going to be starting from pole position in the GT3 class. Meanwhile, Jack Oliphant, hopefully with a fresh list of questions to ask him, is about to catch up with our GT4 Cayman pole sitter.
Yes, Ben Smith. Well, first of all, another pole. It's another day. It's standard stuff. The grass is also green. How is it feeling for you right now?
No, it's pretty good. I absolutely love Snetterton. It's my local track, so I was definitely looking forward to this one the most. So I was hoping to get on pole, and I did it by a pretty good margin, I'd say.
I don't know whether Andy McEwen was just trying to spice things up or put the pressure on you. I don't know, or whether it was actually true or not. But there was a rumor that you're potentially lacking a bit of consistency around here. So although you enjoy it, is that the case, or is he just trying to give us something to talk about?
Yeah, just giving you something to go with, really. In qualifying, my first lap was the fastest I've done all week, so I just thought, oh, I might as well just go for it for the rest of the session. So I was off track, left, right, and centre. So maybe that was what he was looking at.
Well, I was going to say, whatever he was talking about, you've clearly proven him wrong, because you do have a bigger gap than you've had for the last 2 weeks to second place, which is actually, from what I can see, is it Paul Larimer or is it Chris Blakey? I'm not sure if my timing screen's just not updated. It's Chris Blakey, in fact. So you got a new competitor to be thinking about. Is that something that you'd be quite enjoying if you do get a race with him for the first couple of laps?
Yeah, it would be nice to have some racing going along. It was good at Oulton, so maybe the same again would be rather nice, but then hopefully I can pull away again.
Well, that's fantastic. Ben, I do have a list of other questions I'm going to ask you, but for the sake of the fact that we might be speaking to you again twice tonight, I'm going to save them. So congratulations on the pole position.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. And if that doesn't put the curse of the commentator on him, then nothing will. Thank you very much, Jack, and well done, Ben, on the pole position. Right then, before we dive into our first race, some news to bring you all, because as always, lots going on behind the scenes here at the VRRC, including work on not just the next one, but the next two championships that will be running in the new year. One of them, which we'll get onto in a moment, is your traditional 8-week sprint racing championship. But alongside that, and I think this is a fantastic idea, by the way, is an 8-round endurance championship. We've been sort of toying with the idea of endurance racing a little bit over the recent past, and we're now going all in with 8 races, 90 minutes per race, with obviously the live broadcast as per usual. Free entry for members. Non-members, it's only £10 per round. The unique element of this being that they won't run over 8 consecutive weeks as the normal championships will. Instead, we're going to sprinkle them in between the other regular 8-week sprint racing championships. So we'll have 2 rounds in January, then we'll run another championship for 8 weeks, then another 2 rounds in April, 2 rounds in July, and then the final 2 rounds over the end of September and the beginning of October. It's going to follow roughly the World Endurance Championship calendar. The cars are GT3, as you can see. We've got the BMW, the Lamborghini, the Lexus, and the Mercedes. And Jack, I am rather looking forward to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you find exciting about that, Andy. You and an endurance championship. I didn't know it was your cup of tea. It does sound pretty cool though, and it's a different format that we've had before at VRRC. We always try slightly different things, and GT cars are fairly popular. So I'm excited by this one. It should be really cool, and it'll keep us on our toes as well, Andy. If we keep remembering what happened a month ago. But there's not just that, of course. There is another championship we've got to talk about. More news, and it's a traditional championship. So if you're worried that you're only going to be seeing stuff maybe twice a month or every other month or anything like that, well, don't fear. We're going to sprinkle in between those World Endurance events the full 8-week championships that you're used to. That's why the endurance events are so long. So the next one coming up is a mini JCW Challenge Cup. It's a fantastic sort of car to drive. Everybody likes touring cars. Everybody likes Civics. Well, the minis are sort of the next best alternative, I should say. We haven't raced them for a while. And you can see it's a fairly British affair with the likes of Donington Park, Castle Combe, Oulton Park, Mondello. I'm not sure. Mondello Park. I'm not actually sure I've ever commentated or anything there. Anglesea's thrown in there, Brands Hatch, Croft, and Duxton. So it should be a lot of tracks that a lot of people are used to. But I like the addition of Anglesea and I like the addition of Mondello, Andy.
Oh, there's the on button. Yes, I like Mondello Park as well. It used to be on the British Touring Car calendar for a couple of years, about 20 odd years ago now, probably, over in Ireland. And yeah, cracking little layout, that one. So that should be really good fun. Where I have prizes, of course, as always, for the mini championship as well, for our sprint championships anyway. Just trophies for the endurance, but proper prizes for the minis. So we've got a CAMMUS wheel and pedals for the champion. We've got a sim racing dashboard. I want one of these from a courtesy of Phoenix Sim Racing, who are continuing to work alongside. There's a Mecha sequential gear shift of the third place driver, and fourth and fifth places will receive some VRRC merchandise. Now, along with that, we've got our fun race and time attack still going on. The fun race is, remind me, Rich, where we are for this week's fun race. Castle Combe, that's right. We're in Skodas, I seem to recall, aren't we? Yes. For a bit of front-wheel drive tin-top racing fun around a very fast, very bumpy, proper old-school track, Castle Combe. And that looks, suitably, Jack, like quite a lot of fun.
It does indeed. That's not only the thing. I think that was the fun race that you just covered, wasn't it? Well, we had the time attacks, which, again, Rich might have to remind me what it is. F1000s at Oulton. So there we go. A track we've just been to. If you've been sort of wetting your whistle from last week and Oulton Park action, then by all means jump into the time attack for the F1000 over the next couple of weeks. I'm sure that'll be something that everybody can get on board with. And of course, there are cash prizes in there to be won if you're members. And there's obviously just the ability to jump onto a good Assetto Corsa server and see how quick you are compared to these guys. If you are non-member, you can still get involved with that, I'm sure. But yeah, Andy, there's loads of stuff to be getting on with, isn't there? But I know you're particularly interested in the endurance, but I'm particularly interested to see how the drivers cope with that sort of big gap in between the races as well, because that is something that we haven't done before.
Well, they'll need it, won't they, really? Because we all know their thoughts on races beyond the length of 25 minutes. So that will give them plenty of time to recover. Right then, we need a bit of time to prepare ourselves for our first race of the night. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Welcome back, everyone, then. Cars getting ready, drivers getting ready for our first of two 25-minute races tonight here at the Snetterton 300 circuit. We've got Joel Lask on pole position once again, with Nicky Taylor alongside him. The points leader, Kyle Felvis, starts from third on the grid with Elliot Dalton-Ayres alongside him, and Jay Warren starting only sixth. So Jay Warren, remember the significance of that is that he is second in the championship, but if he finishes down there and Nicky Taylor can finish on the podium, then there's a good chance that that will reverse going into the second race a bit later on. So the red lights go on. We're almost ready to go racing here at Snetterton. Quite a long run down into Rich's corner. Who will arrive there as the race leader? It's lights out. Away they go towards Rich's, and absolutely neck and neck between the top two. Now, pole position here is on the outside line. That probably is going to favour Nicky Taylor when we get to the first corner. He's got the preferred line through turn one, and he, I think, is going to emerge as the race leader. He's also got the inside line now for the first big braking zone down into the Wilson hairpin, out of which I think Nicky Taylor should emerge out in front. Yes, he does. So Taylor's got the advantage. Lask in second place, and Carl Felvis trying to force the issue around the outside of Elliot Dalton-Ayres to move up into third, which he does. So Carl Felvis then gaining ground. Jay Warren's also picked a place up though, Jack, and he's into the top five.
Yeah, but I think Carl Felvis is maybe about to drop down, because as we head into Agostini for the first time, Elliot Dalton-Ayres is on the inside, and there's contact at the front with Nicky Taylor being turned around by Joel Lask there. And Andy, well, I think everybody's going to have a certain opinion on that one, aren't they? It's, we'll leave it to the shooters to get the final decision, but our pole sitter and our second place sitter, contact. Let's put it that way, with Carl Felvis, championship leader, taking over the race lead.
Second week in a row, those two have found themselves making contact. It didn't take any time at all this time, did it? And yeah, Carl Felvis, right place, right time, nipped through into the lead. So Felvis leads down the back straight for the first time. Lask is second, Dalton-Ayres third. Eric Axelson up to fourth place, so he's had a really good start through all of that. And Josh Martin, who I think qualified 8th or 9th, is up into the top 5. He got past Jay Warren with a really, really aggressive move, but a clean move ultimately, up the inside into Oggies. So Josh Martin, the green car there at the back of the shop, into the top 5 in the GT4 class. Ben Smith is leading. Paul Laramie up to second though, so Laramie has got past Chris Blakey, and he'll have eyes only now for the class leading. He needs to start outscoring Ben Smith.
He does indeed, and there is Ben Smith just going through Coram, and look at the gap he's got already between himself and Paul Laramie. Andy, that's a worrying sight when you consider that they've only just about done the first lap here. Not even done the first lap, have they, actually, because Felvis is only just crossing it. There's a couple of battles going up front in the GT3 category, though. That's Jay Warren going a little bit wide and trying to catch Josh Martin, who seems to have found a couple of places up from where he started on the grid. Andy Dorman's just behind him as well. Eric Axelson in fourth place, so the two sort of teammates, supposedly, in 4th and 5th position, which I'm sure will suit them quite nicely. There is Kagashiwa. We haven't seen him for a couple of weeks, and doing battle with a recovering Nicky Taylor. Nicky Taylor going around the outside there is no mean feat, despite how slowly Kagashiwa was going. It's still a brave move to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kay, in fairness, was not moving out of the way there at all. So Nicky Taylor having to work for this, but will not be happy at all with the manner in which he was removed from the race lead. Now, Joel Lask is now staring at the back of Carl Felvis' car, and Carl will be hoping and praying that Joel has got all of that out of his system, because he needs a clean race here. Felvis is in a brilliant position as far as the championship's concerned, but don't forget, Kyle is carrying 45 kilos of success ballast, whilst Joel Lask is only carrying 20, so 25 kilos lighter. This, although it's a fairly flat circuit, Jack, because it's such a stop and start layout, that will benefit the lighter cars, you'd imagine.
Absolutely, and there's quite a lot of medium and high, medium speed corners especially. So with those tyres, that extra weight, you're putting a lot more traction through them, aren't you, as well? So there's a lot to think about when it comes to Carl Felvis' race here, as he's going through Coram quite nicely. Well, he took back in, straightened up the braking zone. He was slightly offline there, I would say. Maybe Lask will have a bit of a nicer run. We'll have to wait and see as Eric Axelson gets a little bit squirrely on the outside of Murray's. Jay Warren, very, very interested in taking Josh Martin's position. That's the closest battle that we've got, probably within potentially the top 10. But yeah, I don't know. Does this smell a little bit of Oulton Race 1, Andy, which of course was being led by Kyle Felvis, and Joel Lask was the driver who thought maybe he was quicker, and obviously there was a penalty involved with that. Does it smell similar to you?
Well, not dissimilar, certainly. I mean, I'm getting flashbacks for sure, and I'm sure Kyle is as well, because Kyle actually did pretty well out of that in the end, didn't he? He may have lost the win, but he still got a 2nd place in race 1 and a 5th in race 2. Can that good fortune prevail again if there were to be a bit of a moment? In fairness, though, he's getting away from Joel Lask over the first part of this 3rd lap of the race. Joel actually falling back into the clutches of Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who is his teammate, and he's also situated quite a bit further up in the championship standings. Now, I don't think there are team orders in Phoenix Sim Racing, but perhaps at this point, Elliot Dalton-Ayres might be wishing that there were, because if he could get past Lask, I think Elliot might feel that he's got something for Kyle Felvis out in front, and the race win now would do Elliot's championship bid the world of good.
It would indeed, but both drivers, Joel Lask and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, on that last lap did take away purple sectors, differing purple sectors. So Elliot Dalton-Ayres just a touch slower through that sector 1, with Kyle Felvis getting a little bit quicker. Eric Axelson actually purpling sector 1 before it's taken away from Andy Dorman. So all the cars are starting to get a bit to temperature. Everybody's starting to get a bit more used to it and settle into the race. And I'm just having a look. There's Nicky Taylor on the back now of Craig Curtis. He is. Oh, Kakashiwa goes straight off of Brundle. Nelson, I can never remember which one's which, to be honest. I think Nelson's the right-hander, isn't it? Yeah, thank God. So, yeah, he's not obviously deciding he wanted to turn left. Then maybe the power steering broke. Let's be kind to him. And he gets back on circuit, I'm sure. And there he is. And, yeah, Craig Curtis being overtaken, I'm sure, pretty soon by Nicky Taylor, if Taylor's pace is anything to go by.
This is the frustration there for Nicky, isn't it? He's got good pace. He qualified on the front row. He led through the first couple of corners. Must have been thinking, okay, yeah, I've got the pace to pull away here. And then it all went wrong. And now he's got to try and fight his way back through. But we've seen drivers do this earlier on in the season. You can overtake in these cars. And he will certainly be hoping to make a quick overtake here on Craig Curtis, which he will, because Craig goes very wide out of the Wilson hairpin. And through will go sideways Nicky Taylor. There's also an overtake at the same corner. A bit further up the road, Jay Warren getting himself ahead of Josh Martin. So Jay Warren there, look, up into the top 5 again now. So that's good news for Jay, limiting the damage being done by Kyle Felvis. But look, he's got 2.5 seconds now nearly to try and bridge to close up to the rest of the top 4.
Yeah, it's not going to be an easy task, but he was clambering all over the back of Josh Martin, wasn't he, for a while? So I'm not surprised that the move's been made. And I have to say, when you were talking about Nicky Taylor obviously having a recovery drive, and it's been done earlier in the season and everything like that, if you're going to have to do a recovery drive, I personally would probably choose Snetterton to be one of the places you're doing it, because ultimately there are 3 or 4 good, solid overtaking manoeuvres, whereas everywhere else we've been, you have to be slightly inventive. And Eric Axelson is going to be one of those inventive manoeuvres here, trying to go around the outside of Brundle, trying to get the inside for Nelson. Didn't quite work. He almost went for a cutback. It looked like a cutback, Andy. I think it was just a better thought process. He just backed out of it a little bit and decided to live to fight another day. But we are getting 2 differing fights in the top 4, aren't we? Because Lask, no longer having the headache of Elliot Dalton-Ayres' teammate, can attack forward to Kyle Felvis, and Elliot Dalton-Ayres now has to worry about Eric Axelson just behind. This will play into the hands of Joe Warren.
Yes, certainly will. If these two start scrapping, you can see that gap's coming down already. It was 2.3 seconds half a lap ago. It's 1.8 seconds now, and Jay Warren does a personal best lap of the race. So Jay Warren definitely starting to close in on these two, but 2 laps in a row then I've noticed Joel Lask struggling out of Williams, which is the long right-hander that leads onto the back straight, and that is not a good place to be struggling, because it leads you onto the best overtaking opportunity of them all, down into Brundle and Nelson. I've seen it done before, going around the outside through Brundle to get the inside for Nelson, but I've seen him end in tears a few times as well. Thankfully, didn't on that occasion. Jay Warren, though, continuing to get his head down, pulling away from Josh Martin. The lead gap is down to only 0.4 of a second, but that lead gap, Jack, it really seems to ebb and flow depending on which bit of the racetrack they're at. Part of that might be driving style differences between Kyle and Joel, but I do think that the weight is playing a factor. This middle sector, Joel really seems to be able to close, and that's where the most stop-start elements of the circuit are to be found.
You're absolutely right, but I think, to be fair to Kyle Felvis, I think he's a slightly more consistent maybe over the entire lap than Joel Lask, and coming out of here and obviously onto the back straight is certainly somewhere where, as long as Kyle Felvis can get a clean exit every single time, and you're right, he does seem to have a little bit of a better exit than Lask, he's getting rid of a massive threat to his race lead, because ultimately that's obviously the best overtaking opportunity. So as we mentioned before, as long as he's pretty good through that, I remember I used to hate that corner going onto the back straight with a passion sort of thing. I just could never get the turning right, could never get the apex quite right and everything like that. It's a bit of a dark art. Obviously, Kyle Felvis has a pretty nailed on, but Joel Last does seem to be struggling just a little touch. So it is going to be interesting to see whether he can figure that one out. But Felvers is doing just enough here to stave off any sort of major attacks from Lask.
Well, he is for now, but Lask is in the zone, isn't he, where he could try and launch an attack into some of the braking zones, so we need to keep an eye on that. The same is true, actually, of Andy Dorman, look, who's right in behind Josh Martin, as they, squabble over 6th position. Behind them as well, Nicky Taylor having a go at Ethan Hill, and in fact he's made that move stick. So Nicky Taylor into 8th position now. How far up the running order, Jack, do you think Nicky can get here? He's got 15 minutes, that's still quite a long time, and they're reasonably closely bunched ahead of him, aren't they? Obviously, the further up the order he gets, the harder the overtakes become, but there's no doubt about it, he is looking quick still.
He's got 15 minutes left. Normally, in previous championships, we'd only just be talking as if we're getting out the opening stages. And if they were all this close during the opening stages, you'd be thinking, okay, well, Nicky will probably be able to get through. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets up to 5th place, if he overtakes Jay Warren. I think Eric Axelsen might be just a touch too far, but just given the close proximity that the next 3 are in front of him and to each other, I think he'll sit in that gap there, I reckon, by the end of this race, if he doesn't have any more contact or anything by, in the next 15 minutes or so.
Well, we'll see how true that proves to be. The lead gap, meanwhile, goes up this time to 0.8 of a second down the back straight, and now, if anything, Dalton Ayres is coming back at Joel Lass. And you mentioned the word consistency a few times tonight. That really is the key, isn't it? Felvers looks a bit more consistent. Those behind him perhaps are quicker on the odd lap, or the odd bit of a lap, but hooking that all up, it is such a long lap. It throws so many corners at you over the course of the 3 miles, and you only have to make one little mistake, and often one corner leads on to another, and then another, and then another. You make a mistake in one corner, it can affect you for the next 2 or 3, and I know that's not unique to Snetterton, but it really does seem to be a factor here.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see if... I don't think we got the zoom on tonight, but I would love to see Kyle Felvers right now, because normally whenever we cut to him, he's animated, he's shouting normally at something, I'll be honest, and he's sort of like getting a bit worked up, shall we say, whereas right now I reckon he would look a bit like whenever we cut to Nicky Taylor, where he would look dead focused, not saying a word, head hardly moving and not blinking. But I'd like to see whether his shoulders are down, that's the thing, and how his elbows are, how relaxed they are as well. Apparently we're getting word from Rich that he's looking very relaxed, super focused, which is exactly the state you want to be in when you're just trying to put in those consistent laps. Whereas Joel Lask, not entirely sure, but as he's throwing it off a little bit more, and so is Elliot Dalton Ayres, I wouldn't be surprised if they are a little bit tense and over-driving slightly, which is why they're getting squirrely and why they're struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. But that gap again just starting to concertina back together as they head down the Bentley Straight. We did just see Carl Felvers on the insert there, the Zoom call, and looking a picture of concentration, but certainly not looking too stressed at the moment, although that might start to change as Lask gets back within striking range again through Brundle, then into Nelson. Got to be so careful to stay away from that sausage curve on the inside. You can see the size of that curve. So easy to unsettle the car. Do more than unsettle the car, actually. You can spin the car out completely by hitting that curve. And again, look, Joel Lask riding the curve through Coram, even trying to get that bit of rotation, because that's another difficult thing about this circuit in these cars particularly, Jack. Their rear engine, there's no weight really over that front axle, and Snetterton's one of those circuits where you've got the front of the car gripping these long medium speed corners in particular. You want to get the nose of the car into the corner and then power your way through. You've got to approach it in a completely different way in a car that just does not want to turn in.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary, to be honest, because you're always going into it thinking, okay, am I going to understeer slightly? How much do I need to brake going into it? Do I need to trail brake a little bit harder to get the front to grip? How much do I need to lift off as well? Because, of course, you're not going to be braking halfway round of Coram, but you're probably maybe thinking about lifting off a little bit more so the weight sort of neutralizes it again. There is so much to think about around this circuit, which is why I think it's one of the better ones that we actually go to here in the UK. Joel Lask, I thought, was having a little bit of a nibble, but I think that was maybe a trick of the camera, but he is latched right onto the back of that rear bumper, isn't he? Now he's almost licking the stick on the back of Carl Felvers' car as they go through Hamilton. A lovely corner that I really like Hamilton. As you said in the sort of walk around the track guide, you send a lot more speed through there than you think, and in real life sometimes they get rid of those tyres on the inside, which is always nice to ride the curb types like, but obviously here in the sim that's a no-go. But Joel Lask is really sort of getting to grips with it now, and I think he's sort of working out where he can maybe have a lunge.
Yeah, I think he did try and just almost unsettle Kyle Felvis, really, going into Agostini that time, and didn't work, but certainly we know he's an aggressive driver. We know he's probably going to try something. Nicky Taylor, look at that full four-wheel drift through the left-hander at Brundle, up over the curve, flicks the car back to the right. He's driving it more like a Mark II Ford Escort rally car than a Porsche Cup car. He is wringing that car's neck as he tries to go after Andy Dorman for 7th position. He is going very quickly indeed and does not want to waste any time. It's taken him the best part of 5 minutes to catch Andy Dorman. He cannot afford to spend 5 minutes trying to find a way through, Jack.
No, and in those 5 minutes, the next 3 drivers have somewhat pulled away from each other, but only by a couple of tenths of a second. But every little helps, because, of course, when Nicky does try the overtake on Andy Dorman, and Andy has managed to get a great run through the final corner, and Nicky is overdriving, let's face it, right now, isn't he, Andy? It's pretty much the definition of overdriving, which is not his friend right now, because he's going to be chewing those tyres up, he's going to be overheating, he's also not hitting the right lines, and everything that he was doing well to catch up to this particular point, and obviously that second place in qualifying, he's not really doing it anymore. He needs to really calm himself down. I've seen in the YouTube chat a couple of people, Linda Whitlock, deep breaths, Nicky, come on, it's your track, come up through. Right now, the deep breaths are few and far between, I think.
Yes, definitely. He is, in fact, he probably hasn't paused for breath since he had that spin in the early stages. But he's all over the back of Andy Dorman now, takes the wider line into Oggies, but then Dorman really cleverly sort of parked the car on the apex, covered off the switchback manoeuvre, and that means that Nicky's now going to have to try and focus on getting a good run out of Williams, which he has got. He's in the slipstream. Which side of the road does Dorman go? He's going to sit in the middle for now, and then moves over to the left to try and cover. He's going to show Nicky Taylor the outside line. And Nicky make this stick. We saw a lap ago how committed he is on the brakes through here. It's the dirty side of the road, a narrow line into Nelson, but he's got the car stopped just about. And Nicky Taylor through. That was a peach of a move. I said earlier on that it is possible, Jack, to do that. Go around the outside at Brundle, get the inside for Nelson, but so easy to get it wrong.
It's so ridiculously hard to carry the speed through that left-hander, because normally you brake as hard as you can into it. I'll explain in a second, because I think you're going to have a potential race lead change, because Joel Lask is right on the back of Carl Felvis, and we've seen Nicky Taylor go around the outside of Brundle and Nelson. We're going to try an outside move around Ritchie's. A little bit of contact between these two. We've said that before, but Carl Felvis holds on to it. Joel Lask is not done and dusted. He goes really late on the brakes around the outside of the hairpin, and he's just about outdriven by Kyle Felvis. We're starting to get into the heat of the battle now, though.
Always looking back up the inside into Palmer. Felvis needs to be careful here. He's got a championship to think about. He's got that unbroken run of top 5 finishes to think about. Second place is not the end of the world in this race. And with Joel Lass behind him, he knows that that could very easily end in a little bit of trouble. Out of Agostini they go. They've got traffic not that far ahead as well. And that could present another opportunity, perhaps, for Joel to make a move. But then he makes a mistake. Look, runs wide onto the grass through Hamilton and almost loses control of the car. Late on the brakes into Oggies, then gains all of that time back, seemingly. A fascinating battle this, though, Jack. Kyle Felvis, I wanted to see if you can put us into Kyle Felvis' shoes here. He's leading the race, he's leading the championship, but he's got someone who we know, let's face it, is an aggressive driver in Joel Lass. That's why we like watching Joel Lass. We know he's never that far away from throwing a move down the inside of someone. Does that change oh, hello, hang on. 2 GT4 cars tangling ahead, and look at that, self-cleaning stuff there. They both got out of the way, and no need for these three to force the issue. That was pretty perfect for the leaders. Put everyone in Felvis' shoes, though. Do you drive differently if you've got someone behind you who is known to be an aggressive driver? Can Joel perhaps use that to his advantage, sort of get in Kyle's head, throw a few fakes up the inside, and hope that Kyle leaves the door open?
Well, a lot of people have asked Lewis Hamilton that, didn't they, back in when he was trying to defend from the likes of Max Verstappen, and he always said that, yes, you do end up driving a little bit differently when Verstappen is behind you, and if you see in the touring cars as well, people tend to put their indicators on when Ash Sutton comes up behind them. So there is that opportunity where, yeah, you probably do give them, there's probably a couple of words for it. The most PC word is probably respect to the drivers coming up behind, because obviously you don't want to end it, but there has been a little bit of history. I can't see what the Zoom is saying. I can't see what Carl Felvis' body language is like. I don't know if Rich is going to be able to tell me a little bit better, but if he's still calm, that's quite impressive as well. I imagine that sort of focus is coming off as calm. He will be absolutely tense as anything in his core, but at the moment he seems to be doing pretty well as Nicky Taylor goes through. He's actually lost 2 places here, so he's been overdriving and he's clearly committed some kind of problem. He's back behind the GT4s of John Jones, who obviously we saw off the circuit, but he's behind Ethan Hill and Andy Dorman again. So Nicky again having another problem, unfortunately, tonight for him. And Kyle Felvers, I think he's looking in his rearview mirrors. He's seeing how desperate Joel Lask is and Elliot Dalton is. He's probably pretty happy with the state that he's in right now. If he gets a touch, if he gets forced off the road or anything, you will see him explode. You'll see him, all that tension that's obviously wound up right now in the focus and everything like that, it will explode. And you don't obviously want to see that happen. He's driving particularly well. He's doing everything he needs to. The car is in exactly the right place and exactly the right time. You don't have enough compliments to give how he's driving right now.
Oh, absolutely. It's something I've always struggled with in sim racing. I'd much rather be the chaser than the leader because it's so easy to drive in your mirrors. In fact, Adrian giving some advice to Kyle in the YouTube chat saying, stop looking in your mirrors. That's a lot easier said than done, I can assure you, because when you've got someone weaving around behind you, perhaps flashing the lights, and there, look, a little mistake from Felvers, just missed the apex at Riches. It's so easy to get distracted, and you're so terrified of making a mistake that you're almost more likely to make one because you're driving under so much pressure. It's why often people say, oh, a race where there's no overtaking and the guy that led from the start led the whole way through, they say that's boring. I think it's anything but, because it's so hard to do, especially when you're under this sort of pressure. It is less difficult to do when you've got a 13.5-second lead, and that's exactly the situation that Ben Smith finds himself in the GT4 Cayman class. There he is, look through the bomb hole, 13.3 seconds up the road from Paul Laramie. Another dominant performance, Jack.
Yeah, I'm going to have to start thinking of some questions, aren't I, to ask him at the end of this one. We'll see if we can get some quick fire ones for him or something like that. But yeah, it's been a very good display from him. Paul Laramie, to be fair to him, after not qualifying in second place for the first time in a while, has got himself into second place over the opening lap and has pulled up quite a big gap as well between himself and Chris Blakey. Not quite the same gap that himself and Ben Smith have ahead of him, but still pretty decent indeed. But yeah, here is back to the front of the order with Carl Felvers, and it is one worth noting, I would say, that the top 3 have just pulled away from Eric Axelson a touch every single lap, and Jay Warren may well be interested in the last 3 minutes of having an opportunity there as Carl Felvers goes a little bit wide through the bomb hole. Maybe he's starting to get a little bit sweaty hands now, a bit of a twitchy leg maybe on the braking. We'll have to wait and see, but he's driving committed, he's driving well. I had to say, I know he looked like he went wide at Riches a while ago. It's the second apex at Riches that is really the more important one. And he can carry a little bit more speed through the first apex. Don't quite hit it. As long as you get the second one and straighten the car up, that's important. And ultimately, he's been able to hit both of them here, which is a lovely bit of driving.
I hope everyone's taking notes. This is advice coming from a Snetterton race winner, no less. So you know.
Haven't mentioned that.
Yes, out of the Wilson hairpin they go. In the closing stages of our first race of the night here at Snetterton, probably 2 laps to go, and Carl Felvers is not going to be able to relax at all over the final 6 miles or so of racing down towards the Agostini hairpin. And look, the last thing he wants to see, Jack, more traffic up the road. I know the last 2 back markers got themselves out of the way for him. He's not going to be so lucky this time, I don't think. And it is one of those tracks, isn't it, where if you catch a back marker at an awkward place, Brundle and Nelson, for example, springs to mind, that can cause absolute pandemonium. And I think they might have a chance of catching this car around that part of the circuit.
Yeah, it would be a bit scary, actually. I think they're going to get them just on the straight. I think the brunt of the GT3 has, the grunt on the GT3 has just about enough in it to get past, hopefully. I may well be wrong. This is a little bit touch and go. Joel Lask will know that, and he's already sizing a move up as they go into the bridge. This is going to be very difficult for Carl Felvers. Where does he go? Well, Joel Lask is up the inside through Brundle and Nelson. They haven't caught them. There is contact. Joel Lask, Carl Felvers contact as they come back onto the circuit. Elliot Dalton goes through. There's contact with Eric Axelson as well, who's in second place. But our race leader, there has been a change. It's not the driver you were expecting. Well, it may well be, actually, depending how cynical you are. But Elliot Dalton does come across the line, or he will come across the line with the lead of this race.
With one lap to go, and look at the battle pack we've got for second place now. Joel Lask second, Jay Warren is third, and all of a sudden ahead of the championship leader, Carl Felvis, who is fourth, Josh Martin fifth, Andy Norman sixth, and poor Eric Axelson, who thought that he was quids in there, is down into seventh place again. And Jay Warren's going to show what's going on. Joel Lask suddenly slowed into the first corner. He goes around, Warren delayed as well. What was that all about? Joel Lask all of a sudden hit through the anchor out, stopped on the apex, and Felvis is back to second, Jack. I don't quite know how to describe what I just saw.
No, I'll be honest, I didn't see it. I'm going to try and watch it live because I was looking over my timing screens and everything like that. I'm going to try and shoot to the YouTube stream, which is, of course, delayed for us as we're watching it on our screens, and see what on earth happens. But with Carl Felvis in second place, he probably doesn't really feel too sorry for Joel Lask about that one, does he? He's probably quite happy with where he is.
Yes, well, Lask has dropped back now as well, almost deliberately. I really don't know what was going on. I can only think maybe there was some sort of connection issue.
Well, I'm watching it. He really does just hammer the brakes on, and Jay Warren really is the party that's probably the most annoyed about it, really, because he was in a great position, and now he's fallen well back. Is he behind? No, he's still ahead of Eric Axelson, isn't he? But he obviously saw a podium opportunity and then saw it all go away again.
Yes, okay, answers on a postcard, everyone. We're down into Brundle and Nelson for the final time. Elliot Dalton is going to win this race. I don't think even he can really explain how that happened. He's been in third pretty much since the drop of the green flag, and now here he is heading through the bomb hole for the final time, on his way to the checkered flag. For Elliot Dalton then, this will be a first victory of the season, actually, and this from a driver who, in our last rear-wheel drive GT championship, was a title contender, so perhaps a bit of a surprise that it's taken this long and a fair dose of good fortune to get him onto the top step of the podium again, but he will weave in celebration across the line, take the checkered flag, and wins for the first time this season. Elliot Dalton is victorious by what's going to be nearly 7 seconds over an absolute land rush of drivers. Over second with a few stories to tell, and Josh Martin, I don't mean to sound so surprised, Josh, but Josh Martin on the podium after all of that chaos and calamity. Dorman fourth, Jay Warren a disappointed fifth ahead of Eric Axelson sixth, Ethan Hill seventh, Nicky Taylor eighth, with Craig Curtis ninth and Joel Lask completing the top 10. Jack, I've no idea what was just going on. Poor old Ben Smith's going to have no idea what we're all getting so excited about then.
I was going to say, yeah, it's another day of just driving around the circuit in first place for Ben Smith, isn't he? But that was stunning. And to be honest, Josh, I wouldn't take that from Andy. I think you did brilliantly there. And you're obviously on the podium. Why wouldn't you be? But yeah, it was a really exciting race from our perspective. I can imagine there's a few fans and a few drivers that maybe are going to share their opinions on the YouTube chat. But it was exciting, let's say that. But Ben Smith, you're right. He's going to come across the line in first place yet again, unless his computer disconnects or something like that. Paul Laramie with another second place, and Chris Blakey, that championship lead will extend once more, won't it? And a note on Nicky Taylor, after a really strong charge back through the order, didn't go his way in the end, did it?
No, it didn't. Sorry, I'm still a bit stunned into silence. Ben Smith across the line claims the victory in the GT4 Cayman class. Paul Laramie is going to come home in second position, and Chris Blakey will get himself back onto the podium again as well. Chris Blakey, remember, third in the points, so extending his margin over Sam Milner, who's going to come home in fourth place. Laramie across the line. Blakey will follow him about 4 seconds later. We are going to go into a quick ad break. We're going to drag the drivers in for a chat and try and figure out what on earth just happened. So a dramatic opening race of the night complete here at Snetterton. We've got 6 drivers to have a chat with, so let's try and rattle through this as quickly as we can, starting with our race winner, Elliot Daltonaires. Elliot, I'll be honest with you, 5 minutes ago, I didn't expect to be saying that, but quite a dramatic turn of events at the end of the race, and you were in the right place to benefit. Oh, Elliot's muted himself. Shall we try that again, Elliot? Have we got you? Don't think we have. So
He
we
doesn't,
will.
he doesn't want to comment.
Well, I can't really say I blame him. Tell you what, let's move on, shall we, instead to the second place finisher, and we'll maybe try and move back to Elliot if he's there in a second. Second place, Kyle Felvis. Kyle, where do you even start to sum that race up? I mean, so many ups and downs. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, I mean, where do you start? I think anyone could answer that question. It's, you know, it all started on lap 1 when I gained first. I mean, there was an incident between Nicky and Joel. And, you know, I won't comment too much on it, but Nicky had so much pace this evening. In practice throughout the whole week, he's been the quickest driver. And I think if Nicky had stayed where he was, it would have been a first for Nicky. But, you know, it's happened again. And I think I was leading the race, and then, you know, it was good racing up until that point.
Fantastic racing and brilliant driving under pressure as well. We were commenting on that during the race. Having someone right on your rear bumper for that length of time, not easy. And so many braking zones where it's easy to outbrake yourself. So many long corners where it's easy to miss the apex. And really not a mistake to be seen until the obvious incident happened towards the end. I'm not saying that was your mistake, but that was the only thing really that went wrong.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Snetterton, it's a really tight and twisty track, but then it's got some flowy bits to it. So I think to not make a mistake the whole time is good. Definitely got good consistency. I just don't think the pace is quite there. Unlike Nicky, and, you know, he genuinely was rapid this week. But we were doing well, and yeah, up until the second last lap.
Indeed so. Well, Carl, very diplomatically put. Well done. We'll leave you to prepare for race number 2, but well done on getting out of jail there with a second place finish.
Thanks, Andy.
So that's Carl Felvis then. Elliot Daltonaires, unfortunately, has left the chat. We'll see if we can get him back. In the meantime, Jack Oliphant can catch up with our third place finisher.
In fact, yeah, well, actually, sorry, Josh. I'm going to quickly try Elliot Daltonaires again. Elliot, do we have you finally?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, I'll repeat Andy's question earlier. I bet you didn't really expect to gain first place from that race. Talk us through it from your perspective.
Well, coming down the back straight, I saw Kyle and Joel neck and neck, and Joel had the inside, so I thought Joel was going to go through, but I wasn't close enough to sneak with him. And then I don't know what happened. The next minute, they're 90 degrees facing the wrong way, and there was just a nice Porsche gap there, so I just went for it, and everyone else got caught up, and it just fell right into my hands.
It looked like a fairly difficult race, though, in terms of keeping that consistency and keeping the pace up, though. How did you find it? Were you able to think, would you have been able to be a little bit quicker if you were ahead of Joel, or do you reckon that was sort of the max of everybody's pace?
I was trying to stay in a gap between Joel and Eric, because every time I got within about half a second, my ping went up. So I was just trying to like hold the gap, and then obviously that happened, and everyone else was 5 seconds behind, so I was pretty clear after that.
Well, I was going to say that you had an early battle with Eric Axel's son, although you managed to shift past him pretty quickly. Is that something that you sort of were a bit relieved about, or were you expecting a little bit more aggro from him?
I was a bit relieved by it. I mean, about a lap before, my ping went up to about 200, so I was backing out, and Eric caught up, and then luckily my ping went down, so I just kind of went for it and built a gap, and yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, congratulations, Alex, on the win. However unexpected, sometimes those are the best, aren't they? So, yeah, congratulations, and you never know, we might speak to you after race 2.
Cheers, Jack.
Congrats, Elliot, then on that race win, as we've said. And now we are moving on to our third place driver within the Cup class, Josh Martin. And Josh, a bit like Elliot, you benefited a bit from the late drama, but you made some good early progress as well.
Yeah, not bad from 10th on the grid.
No.
But yeah, I had a cracking start, and I had a brilliant battle with Andy Dorman on the first lap. We went side by side through like 4 corners in a row, and like completely clean as well. So it's just what you want to see. And yeah, I got myself in front of Jay, and it was all going quite well.
It was, yeah. And then obviously it all kicked off at the end. You've managed to find yourself back into the podium place. In fact, this will be your third consecutive third place finish. So you figured something out of late, haven't you? The pace really seems to be increasing.
Hey, not the third place curse again. I had that in real life for a whole season. I just kept finishing third. Hey, but it's better. It's better than 10th. But yeah, so just super happy actually to have some good luck. I was happy to beat Jay because he got by me earlier in the race. So I was more happy to beat him than probably the podium, to be fair.
Yes, well, there you go. The podium, a nice little bonus to celebrate at the end of the race. Josh, we've got to move on to the Cayman class, but congrats. Good to have you back on the podium again.
Cheers.
So there your Cup class drivers done. Time once again, though, for Jack to have a chat with our race winner in the Cayman class, and it's a familiar name on top, Jack.
Yeah, shot caller Ben Smith. Congratulations on the race win. It was dominant, blah, 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 blah. The real question, though, is do you prefer jam, then cream, or cream, then jam?
Jam, then cream.
Right, okay. Is it scone or scone?
Scone.
Is it do you pineapple on pizza?
I would, I would.
Right, kick him out. Rich, this interview's over. That's Ben Smith, and we'll speak to you next week.
I'm with you, Ben. I'm with you on that one. Congratulations on the race win, Ben. We'll speak to you later.
See you later.
Oh dear. Right, second place. Again, a familiar sight. Paul Laramie. Paul back in second place again. Normally, second place something to celebrate, but you must be getting a bit fed up of this now.
Yes. Yeah, we got I had a couple of GT3s in front between us right at the very start, which just gapped us a little bit. Couldn't quite catch up, and Ben is so fast around here. So yeah, fair play to him.
Yeah, again, that early advantage he had proved to be pivotal. You have got a track position advantage over him slightly in this race. How aggressive are you willing to be in the first few corners to try and make the most of that?
Well, after spinning him out last time at Oulton in the second race, I should try to do that again. But yes, try and get ahead a little bit and try and get in front to stay there. But we'll see.
Excellent. Sounds like a plan, Paul. Well done. Second place. Good luck for race 2.
Cheers, mate.
And finally, back on the podium again, Chris Blakey, third in the championship, and he was third in that race too, Jack.
He was indeed. Yeah, Chris, congratulations on that one. Is that a bit more of a... I'll be honest, we didn't see much of it due to the GT3 class, but how interesting was it from your perspective?
Well, you can't say nothing but consistent, another third. I was slowly kind of catching up to Paul. That was bringing the gap down and a little mistake. So it was trying to stay consistent because the last couple of rounds I've had spins of my own doing. So that was quite fun to be within snapping distance at Paul. So we'll see what race 2 brings.
I was going to say snapping distance is what we like to hear, Chris. So we're expecting a few little nibbles maybe when we come into race 2.
If we get close enough, yes.
Fantastic. I'm very excited with the reverse grid. Good luck for it, and maybe we'll be speaking to you after.
Thank you, guys.
There we go. So they were your podium finishes across both of the classes in race 1. We move on now, though, to race 2. And, well, the first race, a little bit messy at the end. Jack, there's every chance we're going to have a bit more messiness on our hands in the second one because we've got the full reverse grid, quick drivers at the back, some of the slower drivers at the front, and we've got the Caymans starting ahead of the Cup cars on a notoriously narrow start-finish straight.
It is very narrow, isn't it? I mean, normally we quite like to see them split. Sometimes the GT4s get nice and close together. The GT3s sort of try and go around the outside of them. Whether that works or not is obviously dependent on the track and dependent on the day. And quite a lot of the time, dependent on how cooperative the GT4s want to be. As we go through Richie's, it's a relatively medium speed corner when they're coming off the line. So it's going to be interesting. Then obviously they head into the heavy braking zones. Everybody will want to be going into that heavy braking zone in the lead. Everyone will be trying to go around the outside of turn number 1, I reckon. It's going to be a bit dicey.
Yes, it could well be, but entertaining nonetheless. We are ready to go, nearly. Anyway, red light's about to go on, and we have got John Jones on the outside. Remember, the red and black car on pole. To his inside, we have got Mark Stokes. The lights go out. Mark Stokes gets a better start than John Jones, but watch for the Cup cars coming through. That's Joel Lask and Kei Kogashiwa splitting it up the middle. Oh, hold your breath, everyone. There's no way in the month of Sunday this is going to work. Around goes Joel Lask immediately right in front of the pack. Oh, they're all going to get through. Kogashiwa's on the grass. No one else for a moment appeared at all behind. And Joel Lask goes from the front to the back, from hero to zero. John Jones goes back up the inside of Mark Stokes for the race lead. Amazingly, Jack, I think it was only really Joel. No, I spoke too soon, and that might have been Ben Smith. And it was. Ben Smith has gone around. So the Cayman Class Championship leader off the road at the Wilson Hairpin, along with Craig Curtis and Andy Dorman in the Cup class. Drama then for Ben Smith. And Paul Laramie is where? I don't think he's leading the class, but he is at least still pointing in the right direction.
No, well, John Jones was leading the class, and Silly just decided to drive around the outside of Agostini, and he's getting overtaken by all the GT3s. But he is still in the lead of that GT4 category. Speaking of the overall lead, though, Kai Gogashiwa, fantastic from him, obviously going around the outside of everybody and taking advantage of it. However, doesn't probably want Nicky Taylor behind him, and that's exactly what he's ended up with. Nicky, obviously, on the front row after qualifying, ended up having contact. He's probably relieved to avoid all of that contact in the first couple of corners. He's in second place. He's got Eric Axelson and Kyle Felvers, who has found himself once more in the top 5, and through the reverse grid is exactly where you want to be. Kai Kogashiwa goes very wide through Brundle and gets it just on the apex for Nelson, holds everybody up in the process as Nicky Taylor through the bomb hole gets a decent run, but Eric Axelson gets an even better one. It's not just about the change of the race lead. Nicky Taylor even needs to go and get it done, or just hold off as he brakes hard through Murray's now. He's going to have the best opportunity going into Ritchie's, Andy.
Yes, he is. He's got the run, he's got the slipstream, but I don't think he's going to have the inside. Oh, he does.
Yes, he does. Wow.
Just puts his arm out the window almost and waves through Nicky Taylor. So Nicky Taylor is surely now about to take over the race lead. Has he got a move made? He's over the curb. He's a bit sideways, but Nicky Taylor will go through. So for the second time tonight, Nicky Taylor leads in the early stages. It's now pivotal, really, that Axelson and Felvers go through with him. Axelson's up the inside of the Wilson hairpin. Kogashiwa out wide, and that should now allow Carl Felvers through as well. Felvers will have much better traction off the hairpin and does clear the pink and white car into the left-hander at Palmer. So 3 places lost for Kogashiwa. Ethan Hill is the next car now onto his tail, and then it's the race 1 winner Elliot Dalton Ayres in behind. Ethan Hill now nips up the inside of Kogashiwa into Agostini, and just like that, Kogashiwa goes from first down to 5th, although back into 4th again, because Ethan Hill, I think there, Jack, outbraked himself.
Yeah, I was genuinely worried for Carl Felvers' rear end, to be honest, because Ethan Hill really did go very late on the brakes and was very far on the inside. I think there's even more drama actually behind, because Kogashiwa ends up hitting Ethan Hill and they go wide and off the circuit. J1 will probably try and take advantage of that. Josh Martin has. He's moved up. So not a lot of the GT3s have really fallen victim that badly in that first quarter. Couple of incidents. Craig Curtis is probably the biggest loser in it, but apart from that, they've all managed to get ahead of the GT4s once more, and we're only about a couple of laps into it, aren't we? So yeah, we're pretty much all set and ready to go for the next 22 nearly minutes of racing here with Nicky Taylor in the lead.
Yes, indeed. It is still John Jones, by the way, who leads in the Cayman class from Paul Laramie, but we'll focus on this battle for the time being, because Eric Axelson's asking all the right questions right now of race leader Nicky Taylor. Axelson, of course, had that victory. In fact, he's had 2 victories so far this season before their missing last great week at Oulton Park. So Axelson would love to come back with a bang and get himself back on the top step of the podium. Nicky Taylor hugging that pit wall to try and defend into Rich's corner. Sweeps back over to the racing line, leaves the door open, and Axelson tries to commit to the manoeuvre. And Eric knew, I think, that it was the right time to bail out of that when he loses momentum on the exit of the turn, though. And I thought for a second was going to be under threat from Carl Felvers. So did Eric, look, because he outbraked himself. Runs out wide. There's a bit of a touch of Felvers. Did well there, in fairness, to not spin Eric Axelson round completely. There was definitely contact, not intentional. And Kyle realised he had to get away from Axelson's car as quickly as he could to avoid the second place man being tipped into a spin.
Yeah, if you saw actually the brake lights, and it was probably on the brake tracing as well, if you could look that closely at Carl Felvers, he was actually holding it as they were coming off the corner. He knew full well what was happening. He knew full well that he was going to be in the wrong as well. So he managed to just about hold on to that and allow Eric Axelson just enough room to dispatch himself in the front left and able to get back going again. So they've given Nicky Taylor a bit more breathing room, probably more than Eric would have liked. But it's potentially a good thing for Carl Felvers, because it means he can get into the race lead, and then he'll have his teammate in the lead of the race overall. So it'll be a HFT 1-2 if Carl can get past Eric, which is a big if, because like you said, he's a very quick driver, is Eric, even though we haven't potentially seen the best of him in this championship. After last week, it's going to be he's going to be keen, that's for sure. Speaking of being keen, Ben Smith has been able to get himself up to 3rd place in this particular class, hasn't he? He's got Paul Laramie to overtake going into Bundle and Nelson. He's going to have to do it the hard way round. No, he's not. Good cutback.
Oh, tried it, but didn't quite have the momentum actually in the end. So Laramie manages to stay in front. This, remember, the battle for second in the class, but it is also the battle between the two championship leaders. And it looks as though Laramie's a bit slow out of Nelson corner. Ben Smith gets to the inside into the bomb hole, and I think he's going to be able to go through because the next corner is a right-hander, a very long right-hander at that at Coram, and that surely will favour Smith. There's a bit of a hip and shoulder, but in fairness, I don't think Ben really deviated from the apex at all there. Laramie keeps on coming though, right round the outside, gets the inside for Murray's, and goes back by him again. Brilliant racing there. Laramie was not going to give in. This is all allowing John Jones to pull away, but we've got probably the closest racing we've had all season, really, in the Cayman class, and it is all really kicking off between the top two in the championship.
Yeah, that was a great move there by Paul Laramie, wasn't it? And he's going very defensive through Ritchie's, though. I think you needed to do that, and that's going to ruin his run into the hairpin, where he's, although he's on the inside, Ben Smith really nice and late on the brakes. Although Laramie putting his car exactly where he needs to be. He hasn't quite cut back, though, as Chris Blakey almost spins himself. Paul Laramie, he is not doing too badly, to be fair to him. I don't think he's quite got the momentum, but he's putting his car right where it needs to be to make it as difficult as possible for Ben Smith, as they're almost making contact going into Agostini. Again, Paul Laramie on the inside. He needs to really park it on the apex. He hasn't quite done it, and he's opened the door up for Ben Smith.
Yeah, Smith's got the inside line now for Hamilton, and I think this time it should be job well done. Yes, it is. He slips through the left-hander, but a sterling attempt at a defence there from Paul Laramie, but it was the kind of defence that you knew could only last for so long, really. He was just sort of driving around the inside of the track, parking on the apexes, and eventually he was going to leave the door open, which he did, and Ben Smith is through, not yet into the lead, of course, only second place. John Jones, remember, still leads the class now by nearly a second and a half. Back in the Cup class, meanwhile, Nicky Taylor starting to look a little more secure now out in front. Axelson still second, Felder's third, Dalton Ayres fourth, Josh Martin fifth, and Ethan Hill in sixth position. But Nicky Taylor now starting to settle into a rhythm, would you say?
Yeah, he got that gap, didn't he, after Felder's had a little nibble at Eric Axelson, and since then he hasn't really been troubled too much, but equally, I don't think Ericsson's been troubled too much either. We've been keeping an eye on the gap, and it was about 0.3. It's opened up to nearly half a second now, so it is getting a little bit big, although having said that, it's sort of now going down yet again. So as Laramie goes wide, as Ben Smith is potentially going to take the lead for the GT4 class on John Jones. It only took him a lap, Andy, to get into this position, or even maybe only half a lap, actually, to get onto the back of John Jones. It may well be done by the time we get into the third corner as they go around Ritchie's. You know, to be fair to John Jones, I think he's carried all right momentum there as they head into the braking zone. Jones going to be on the inside, the cutback. He needs to stop the car. I think he's gone too wide. There goes Ben Smith.
Yeah, there he went. Well, a stout defence as we're used to seeing from John Jones, who has generated a bit of a reputation for being harder to pass than a cyclist on a country lane, and eventually it was only a mistake that allowed Ben Smith through. Ben Smith through into the lead and should now set sail, you would imagine, unless Jones is going to try and come back at him here into Agostini. Stranger things have happened, but no, he's a bit too far back, and actually now needs to turn his attention to defence, really, because Paul Laramie's eager to try and get through as well. He almost had the switchback on the exit of Agostini, but a bit too aggressive on the loud pedal, and a snap of oversteer means that he stays in third for the time being, but I think only a matter of time, really, Jack, before Laramie's able to follow through. The trouble is that Ben Smith's gone already. Yeah,
I don't think anybody's catching Ben Smith now, but it's up to Laramie to try and get second place, which he almost sounded bored in the interview, didn't he? He's a bit of a sort of repetitive nature about it. Ben Smith never seems bored of having the first place interview. It's funny that, isn't it? How one position can make all the difference, really. But yeah, it'll be up to Laramie now to get the move done. He'll be hoping as efficiently as Ben Smith did, but it's taken him a little bit longer. But he's got the inside going into Bommel as a swervy John Jones off the corner there. And as they go through Bommel, Laramie does have second place in class all wrapped up. I've been keeping an eye on Joel Lask's progression through the order as well, because of course we were having a look at Nicky Taylor in the first race, Andy, and his sort of comeback. Well, Joel Lask, I didn't see really whose fault it was or anything through the first corner incident on the second race, but he's got a bit of a bigger gap than Nicky Taylor. He's not in as good a position as Nicky was on that recovery drive, 20 minutes ago.
No, he's not. Ironically, of course, it was he who tangled with Nicky Taylor and put him in that position in race one, and now Joel having to do the same thing down in 8th position, as you said, but yeah, needs to try and close in on the group of cars ahead. The trouble is the next group is Josh Martin, Ethan Hill and Jay Warren, and they themselves are 3 seconds behind this, which is the lead gaggle heading down the Bentley straight. And well, really, it's more a three-way fight for second, isn't it? Axelson dropping away ever further from the race leader and more into the clutches of Carl Felmus and Elliot Dalton-Ayres behind. The three of them wind their way through Brundle and Nelson. Josh Martin behind, getting very sideways and missing the apex completely at Nelson as a result. But Carl Felmus between a rock and a hard place here, isn't he, really? He'd like to try and have a go at Eric Axel. Somebody's painfully aware of the fact that Elliot Dalton-Ayres is behind him and is on form tonight. Picked up that good result, great result, in fact, a race win in the first race. Elliot will be on a high and keen to try and get back on the podium. So Felmus knows if he makes a bit of a lunge on Axelson, it had better work. Otherwise, it could leave the door open for Dalton-Ayres to come through as well.
The classic 3-car and being the person in the middle cliche in racing, isn't it, really? But I think from Felmus's point of view, third or fourth, in terms of points, it's not a massive difference. All that's important is that he comes within the top 5 and he's already outscoring what he did in his drop rounds and everything like that. So his drop rounds are really solid. In fact, last week could have been a drop round because it was exactly the same as what the actual drop round he's taken from round 2, sorry. So he's in a strong position pretty much as long as he doesn't make any contact, as long as he doesn't spin here, he's in a really good position to pick up really good points, and he'll be extending that championship lead, which is ultimately all he really cares about, because Jay Warren is stuck down in 7th. Warren obviously didn't even come on the podium in race 1, so that lead is extending. Nicky Taylor is, after Jay Warren, is the next person he has to worry about, and going into tonight, I think he was a good 40 points back from him. So yeah, it's all going Kyle's way. Whether he gets 3rd or 4th doesn't really matter for him, I would say right now. He's done a good job.
And I'm really noticing that when we speak to him, actually, because I think the Carl Felmus of a couple of seasons ago would have been spitting feathers after race 1 and would have been really frustrated, disappointed that the race win had got away from him. I think the Carl Felmus of the here and now is very aware of the fact that it's all about scoring points. You know, this unbroken run of top 5 finishes will ultimately claim him the championship. It will only be if he starts regularly finishing outside of that top 5 now that he starts getting himself in some trouble. So I do think Carl is approaching this, we've mentioned this before, but approaching it with a very different mindset. And I think this is a perfect example, really, of that to be demonstrated. Jay Warren, meanwhile, stuck behind Ethan Hill here. This is the battle for 6th position. We're on board with Ethan looking back at the yellow and black car, which was so quick at the start of the season. Really, Jay Warren should have more than 2 wins by this point. Arguably should have won the very first race of the season had it not been for a bit of a lack of confidence on cold tyres in the early stages. But here he is, stuck in 7th place and really feeling his championship hopes starting now to dwindle a little bit. Back in the Cayman class, John Jones is 3rd-ish. He might not be by the time he comes out of Nelson. No, just about manages to stay between the white lines, but under big pressure now from the race 1 podium finisher, Chris Blakey.
Yeah, he's trying those wet lines, isn't he? Going around the outside on the dirty stuff. It's not quite worked for John Jones, and Chris Blakey gets a little bit close to him and ends up actually almost falling off the circuit himself. I'm not entirely sure what these guys do, but hopefully they're enjoying themselves. That's all I can hope for 3rd place on track, of course, with Ben Smith somewhat. How far up ahead is he now? Is he over 6 seconds yet? I think it's just waiting for it to tick over. There is Ben Smith. Is nearly 6 seconds, 5.5 to be precise. And you just see Laramie in the background of your picture. There we go as they go through the 2nd corner. The GT4 class again, probably wrapped up. Maybe we'll get through more than 3 questions with Ben Smith before he gives me an answer that I don't like for this next interview.
Exactly so. So out of Nelson, they go. Eric Axelson here getting boxed in behind one of the Cayman cars. That's Mark Stokes, I think. And this might allow Carl Felmus an opportunity to come through. It almost allowed Carl Felmus an opportunity to get turned around, though. Actually, there was very nearly contact there. And I think he's going to think twice about lunging at the inside into Murray's corner. Taylor then 2 seconds up the road now from this group, and Eric Axelson really having to fight a rearguard action here. Carl Felmus, though, is the man behind him, and a bit like in race 1, Jack, when I said that Felmus would be particularly feeling the pressure because it was Joel Lask behind him, a driver who's known to be aggressive and willing to take a bit of a lunge. Eric will know that Carl Felmus is very much driving with a championship head on his shoulders right now, and that might just mean that Eric Axelson shouldn't feel the need to watch his mirrors or drive overly defensively, because the chances of Carl Felmus taking a big risk here are quite lower than if it was a non-championship contending driver.
it's a very different Carl Felvis, is what we're trying to say. You mentioned it earlier. That is attacking Eric Axelsson right now. I think if Eric looked in his rearview mirrors maybe even 3 championships ago, he'd be slightly worried, and it would be a similar case of what we saw earlier with Laskin Felvis as Eric gets a little bit squirrely on the exit there. But this is a much nicer position for Eric to be in, because he knows he's got a driver that's not going to take 30% risks. If a mover's only 30% on, Kyle isn't going to take it, unlike what maybe he used to do and what the likes of Nicky Taylor used to do, which, to be fair to Nicky, actually, as well, we didn't see what happened in race 1 with him for losing those positions, but he doesn't seem to be taking those kind of risks either. They're a majority risk now rather than a minor risk rather than a majority risk, when in terms of taking overtakes. So it's quite interesting.
It is. So too is the fact that Joel Lask has just retired. So Joel Lask out of the race after the spin of the first corner. Maybe he was carrying some damage from that collision and decided there was not much point in trundling around at the back. So Joel Lask out of the race there. That's a shame for the driver who really seemed to be hitting a vein of form over the mid part of the season, but unfortunately has just got himself involved in a couple of scrapes. The results haven't been able to stick, and definitely a round at which he could have won at least one race, and he's going to end up with 2 disappointing results. Eric Axelsson, though, won't be disappointed if he stays in second place to the line, and John Jones will be pretty satisfied, I would think, with 3rd position. He was on the podium, I seem to recall, in this equivalent race a week ago at Oulton Park, and trying to do the same again here, but he's got to try and keep Chris Blakey at bay. Chris Blakey has been a regular finisher on the podium so far this season. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 podium finishes now from the 11 races that we've had so far, and he's pushing on here, Jack, to try and make that a 9th.
Yeah, and he's sort of, I would say, though, making a slight meal of this. I don't think John Jones is particularly driving perfectly in terms of a defensive drive. He's been offline quite a bit, but then every time Chris Blakey seems to get up to the back of him, he's having a problem as well, and he's sort of maybe overdriving it. He's snapping to the outside. I get that maybe John Jones is doing some stuff that is slightly unexpected, but still, you'd be thinking Chris Blakey has been following him enough now to know where to make the move and stuff like that, going right to the outside of Murray's because John Jones has gone right to the inside of it. It's okay, you need to sort of go slower into the corner and then potentially get a better exit and get that cut back, but it's not seemed to be working. Look at that, Carl Felvis making Eric Axelsson slightly defensive. Do you reckon Eric knows Kyle is going to be a little bit more conservative and he's almost backing him into Elliott Dalton Ayres? Is that potentially a tactic?
It could well be, yes. I mean, it may not be intentional that he's doing that. It may just be that he doesn't have the pace. But I think he'll be very aware of the fact that Carl Felvis won't want to lose any places here. Although Eric almost going some way towards losing a place himself there. Running wide onto the grass out of Murray's. That will lose him traction out onto the pit straight. Still 6 minutes and 40 to go. And this is one of those races, isn't it, Jack, where if you're Eric Axelsson, that time seems to be going twice as slowly as it normally would be. Just where is the checkered flag, he's thinking, because he knows that with every lap that goes by, there's more and more of a chance that he might end up relinquishing this place. Gets into the hairpin there at Wilson again, just snatches the brakes. Bit of a lock up there just as he went in towards the apex, and that means that Felvis rolls the centre of the corner a bit more smoothly now. The back of Axelsson's car is starting to look wayward as well. A few mistakes coming in. I think Eric has overheated these tyres slightly, and this now surely is Felvis' opportunity. Looks to the inside line into Agostini. Felvis not quite as late on the brakes as Eric, though, and again Eric knew there that he could turn into the corner and Felvis would probably back out of it. He gets off the corner better, and for now at least stays in front.
Yeah, he's playing the man, not the game there, isn't he? Because Axelsson, you're right, I think knew that Kyle wasn't going to lunge one at the inside, but that so far has been Kyle's best opportunity. As they go down towards Brundle and Nelson, let's see who gets the better exit out of this one. It looks like a pretty even one. Elliott Dalton Ayres maybe not the best. I have to say as well, quick note on Nicky Taylor driving superbly. Kyle said that Nicky had a race win in him tonight after our interview in race 1. He's driving superbly and he's showing the pace now he's got to the front. He's not quite driving away. I would have expected him to get a little bit of a bigger gap, to be honest, Andy, because these guys are really fighting. Even though it doesn't look like it, he will be slowing Eric up because he's having to drive in his mirrors.
I think it is starting to look like it, to be honest. He's all over the place at the moment. So was Dalton Ayres. But yeah, Nicky Taylor just driving to a lap time, staying in his rhythm. You don't need to be putting in qualifying laps when you're 3 seconds up the road already. But yeah, Nicky, I think we'll be pretty comfortable with the position he's in.
Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile, John Jones, anything but he's continuing to keep Chris Blakey behind him. Stubborn is the word that comes to mind when I think of John Jones's defensive driving. He will not relinquish a place unless he has to, and it's fantastic to watch. But look at that, Blakey. Oh, no, round the outside. There is contact. He's sideways. He's not quite going to save it, and John Jones will stay ahead. I really don't think that was anything that John Jones did wrong particularly. I think maybe just a bit of frustration creeping in there for Chris Blakey because John was making that Cayman the widest Porsche in existence.
Yeah, I don't think either of them were driving particularly perfectly, and John maybe did drift over a little bit too long across that straight and squeezed Chris to the outside, but when he did end up on the outside, Chris shouldn't have dived for the apex. He should have known there was always going to be a car there. It's lots of learning curves, shall we say. I wouldn't be surprised if Chris actually catches up to the back of John Jones by the end of the race and has another little dig, because he does seem faster, just doesn't seem to have the racecraft to go with it, unlike Eric Axelsen, who seems to have the racecraft to go with the pace that might not be optimal right now, but he's still having a decent evening.
Yes, he is indeed. Down the Bentley Straight then comes this fight for second place. 3 3/4 minutes of the race still to go. Where does Felvers make the move? Does Felvers make the move, or does he settle for third place? Nicky Taylor is one of his championship rivals, and he'll be aware of the fact that Nicky is outscoring him. But of course, Kyle outscored him very handsomely in race 1, and I don't think this will actually become a drop score for Nicky either. So this is going to be, it's all going to count. Ooh, Dalton Ayres lagging a little bit there as he came out of the bomb hole, but yeah, Kyle, I don't think will feel the need to take a big risk here. Axelsen can hopefully, he'll be thinking, use that to his advantage. One mistake and Felbus will go for it. We saw that a lap or two ago when he did try and get to the inside into Agostini. If he keeps the pressure on, there's always the chance that Axelsen might just fumble again, and it could open the door for Kyle to slip through. For now, though, Eric driving quite a measured race, I think. I don't think the balance of that car is quite to his liking, but he's not making a big enough mistake yet, touch wood, to allow Felbus the opportunity to come through.
No, I think it's a little bit like what we saw in race 1 with Felvers. I know we've likened it quite a lot to that race, but again, I don't think Felvers was quite as quick as Joel Lask. But just like Eric Axelsen is, he was driving a pretty perfect. Did I just see a car go stage exit right weirdly? Anyway, I don't think it matters. Anyway, we'll go back to focusing on this one. Unlike that, though, I think Eric has thrown a little bit too many mistakes in there, and it was a lag spike, actually, that I saw. That's why we saw the driver going off to the side. I don't think Eric has been quite as perfect as Kyle, but Kyle hasn't been quite as aggressive as Joel, so it's sort of equaled itself out here. I reckon before next week, Eric will have some tweaks to that car to try and make it a little bit more settled.
Now, Sam Milner tried to do here what Chris Blakey was unable to do, and to break through the defences of John Jones for third position. Through Brundle and Nelson they will go. And again, we've seen Sam Milner on the Cayman class podium quite a few times this season. 1, 2, 3, 4 podium finishes so far. It's not quite as many as Chris Blakey, but he still only came into this week's races 9 points behind Chris in the fight for third in the championship. So he's already ahead of Chris by a couple of places after Blakey spin a lap or so ago, and he'd like to, well, by 1 place, but he'd like to put another car between them if he can. They are the next 2 cars as well to be lapped by the race leaders, who make their way out of Brundle and Nelson now. Axelsen crosses the line in second position. Nicky Taylor, meanwhile, puts in another personal best lap of the race. So you said that he wasn't building quite the sort of margin you would have expected given the battling going on behind him, but I think he's just been looking after the tyres. To be able to run that sort of pace at this stage of the race is really impressive.
A very mature drive if that is the case, and he's given himself a nice little buffer to try and overtake the back markers as well, because we've seen so many times this season that can cause massive issues right at the front of the field. And it may well do for Axelsen, but for Nicky Taylor, it shouldn't do, let's be honest. He's going to go up the inside here with John Jones, and it's all going to be done and dusted. That's not going to be as simple for the 2 drivers that are behind him. And it is only 2 now, because Elliot Dalton Ayres has dropped off, and I've been having a look at his ping, because I thought I saw him lagging a little bit, and I think he's been well over 200 ping, which obviously is not ideal. Nicky Taylor, to be fair, may well be struggling a little bit with lag, because he is on high ping as well. You want it to be between 10 and 30, and that you're sort of quite safe, whereas Nicky Taylor's on 95, and Elliot Dalton Ayres was on 200 for half a lap, which is why he's dropped back.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, now speaking of dropping back, Axelson
Oh,
delayed
dear.
in traffic. This is Felbus' opportunity. Surely the patience is going to pay off, and he's gone through already. So there you go. He didn't need to force the issue, just needed to wait for his opportunity in traffic, and now he gets past John Jones before Eric Axelson's able to do. So that will give Felbus a buffer, and just like that, he's into second place. Patience is such an important thing to have as a racing driver, particularly in this sort of multi-class racing. You never know when the opportunities might arise. And for Carl Felbus, they came right at the end of the race because this is the final lap of the race. Nicky Taylor is heading for the checkered flag. And for Nicky Taylor, he is going to claim a second victory only of the season, but it's an important one to keep him just about in the championship conversation. But Kyle Felbus through in second place. What a fabulous drive that was from the championship leader. 2 second places. I think he'll take that after what's been a fairly up and down night. Eric Axelsson back on the podium in third, ahead of Elliot Dalton-Ayres, Josh Martin, Jay Warren and Ethan Hill, whilst Ben Smith is only going to win by just under 10 seconds by the looks of it.
Well, maybe there's a 10-second penalty we can find for him that might spice up the championship. I don't know. I doubt it, to be honest, and he doesn't deserve it because he has driven pretty superbly. And after a half interesting first, 10 minutes it took for him to get into the race lead. After that, he's been just driving his best race, doesn't he? Living his best life. He wants those gloves. He wants those VRRC gloves desperately, does Ben Smith, and he's well on course for it. And to be fair to Andy, I'm not just kissing up to VRRC and Rich right here, but the gloves are probably the best bit of merch you can win. They are absolutely epic. So so Ben Smith is well on his way to getting easily the best prize in that prize pool, in my opinion.
And yes, apparently Ben saying that he needs some new racing gloves. He's not the only one, by the way, Rich. I am in the market for a new pair of racing gloves. Just putting that out there. Right then, through Corham he goes towards Murray's Corner. Another dominant drive for Ben Smith. It's going to be 9.5, nearly 10 seconds his winning margin as he strokes it home, weaves in celebration across the line. And Ben Smith, I'm actually losing track now of how many wins he's had. He won 2, 4, 6, 8 wins now from the 10 races that he has competed in. Paul Laramie's shot at the championship now looking pretty remote, it has to be said. The only saving grace is that Ben Smith has used his drop score, so mathematically it will go down to the wire, but realistically Ben Smith has put the beating really on Paul Laramie, who has to settle for another second place. John Jones, of course, has already claimed third, but was 1 lap down. Right then, that's our racing done for the night, but we've got plenty more to come. We'll hear from our podium finishers in just a minute or two. Welcome back, everybody. Then second race done and dusted here from Snetterton. And we've got our podium finishers in the box once again to have a chat with us. And it is Nicky Taylor who claims the race win. And Nicky, you could argue that really we should have been saying that about half an hour ago too. Race one didn't quite go to plan, but it's always nice when you can bounce back like that, and a pretty dominant victory in the end too.
Yeah, it should have been 2 though, but it's a bit annoying, but is what it is. I'll have my views, he'll have his views. My views were that I went into the corner ahead, and I just don't really expect him to. I don't really know where he was expecting to go, but yeah, race 2 was good. Just kind of managed to be quite careful at the start of all the GT4s, and I think I need to turn my smoke effects down a bit, because when Joel went spinning, I genuine to God could not see a bloody thing ahead of me. Like, honestly, I just had smoke all in front of me, so I was like, right, I'll pick here, hope here works, and we'll see how it goes. And it eventually did, so yeah. But yeah, the first part of the second race was quite hectic because I had obviously Eric behind me who was quite tight, and my pace weren't that brilliant. But yeah, it's one of them nights where it's kind of like I should have won both races. I could have even got pole, but pole was, I think Joel just had pole today. But yeah, I think we definitely had the potential to win both races, and we haven't. So yeah.
Yeah, but all being said, it's not easy to win races in this championship, and the fact that you were able to in that second race should hopefully give you something to smile about. And okay, the chances of beating Kyle in the championship now may be looking a bit slim, but you're well in there still for the fight for second place. You've outscored Jay Warren again in that race, so you've still got a few things to be smiling about, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, in all fairness, I'm not really too fussed about winning this championship because I don't really need a wheelbase. So Kyle needs it, so I'll give it to Kyle. Kyle can have that. So yeah, I'm kind of just looking really for third because third has got a handbrake, and that's the one real thing I need to add to my setup. Doesn't mean if I'm going into the last round and I've got a potential for second, I'm not going to go for it. But yeah, it's one of them. But yeah, it's good racing tonight, and I can't really fault the battles that I was in. Like the moves with Andy and stuff in the first race were clean, and Eric, to be fair, at the start of that second race was clean.
Yeah, good stuff, Nicky. Good to have you back on the top step of the podium again. Congratulations on that, and we'll speak to you again next week, I'm sure.
Thank you. Cheers.
So Nicky Taylor then victorious in race number 2. Jack, though, about to catch up with our runner-up driver.
Yes, indeed. And championship leader, Kyle Felvers. Kyle, I bet after race 1, or after maybe on the penultimate lap of race 1, you weren't expecting to come away with such a good result, but 2 second places is a fairly brilliant evening, is it not?
Yeah, I think coming into Snetterton, I mean, it's not really my favourite track of all, so we were just going for consistent points, and I think that's what we've been doing all season. So I think to get 2 second places, that's really good points on the table, and yeah, we'll take that.
What track do you like? Because I swear it's either you or Nicky. Okay, every time we come in, we say, "Oh, how was it?" One of you says, "I don't like the track. It's not my favorite track." So, what tracks do you like, Kyle?
I like Donington. I like Brands.
Okay, that's good. That's 2 good ones.
I like Thruxton. So
okay, oh no, you lost me again. I won't kick you out though, like I kicked Ben Smith out. But yeah, no, again though, realistically, you fought well there. Was it in your mind, because we were theorising quite a lot with your battle with Eric Axelsson there, that you weren't going to take any high risk, high reward moves? Were you quite happy with where you were sat?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was pushing to try and get past Eric. Eric just had really good pace, and I think I definitely wanted the move, but it sort of just fell in my hands, and we took it from there.
Well, falling in your hands, or whether you wanted it or not, or any of that sort of stuff. Either way, it's a great evening's results from you, Kyle. Good luck for the rest of the championship. You're in a fairly strong position, so I'm sure you've got plenty of confidence going into the next round.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done, Kyle. Congrats on another second place finish. Third place, though, went the way of a man who very nearly ended up on the podium in race 1, Eric Axelsson. Eric, I'm going to start with that, if you don't mind, because it all hell broke loose, really, at the end of race 1, and I really thought you were in the right place at the right time, but didn't quite work out that way, did it?
Nah, a bit unlucky there at the end. I was really happy, to find myself in fourth place in race 1 because I didn't have much practice. This is not my favorite track, and I didn't really have the pace, So I was really happy with being in fourth, and then everything happened there on the last lap. But it is what it is. But yeah, still a good race, I think.
And race 2, a fantastic race, really, as well. You were under so much pressure there through the latter stages in particular. And really, had it not been for that back marker, you probably would have got it home in second place, really. But the pressure you were under there from Kyle Felvers, try and explain to us a little bit of how difficult it is to drive with someone that close behind you for so long.
Yeah, that was tough for sure. Kyle is fast, and I did, as I said, I didn't have much practice. I did these small mistakes all the time, like going wide out on the grass, and yes, I was pretty stressed out, to be honest, because I'm not so sure of the track, But yeah, always nice racing with Kyle, and that last thing with that was my own fault, like going out on the back straight. I could have planned that better, I think, to be honest.
Well, yes, I guess so, but timing of the traffic, not easy really to manage, was it? So you did all right to come out with a podium finish. Hopefully not the last time we get to speak to you before the season's over, Eric. Another solid night for you, though. Well done.
Thank you, Andy.
So they're the Cup class top 3. We now move on to the Cayman GT4s. And right then, we had some controversial line of questioning last time, Jack. Where are we going this time with our class winner?
Well, I'm gonna leave it for the second and give him a chance to speak this time. Congratulations, Ben Smith. That must be a fairly happy day's result. I mean, it must feel like Groundhog Day at this point, but yeah, are you happy?
No, that was brilliant. I really enjoyed that race too, because I ended up at the back again, having been caught up in a little something at the second corner. But yeah, fighting through, had a really nice battle with Paul at one point. I'm not sure if it was caught on the stream, but that was really good.
It was all caught. Don't worry, because it's the most interesting thing we've had in the GT4s all season. So yeah, it was caught. Don't worry. It was a good battle with Paul, and then Paul's battle with John Jones was also very entertaining as well. So there's plenty of GT4 action that we got to go through there. I'll throw some quick fire questions at you because I prepared them, so why not? And when by the time you give me an answer I don't like, I'll kick you off again. Football or rugby?
Football.
Good. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Oh, you're on for a flyer here. Xbox or PlayStation?
PlayStation every day.
Oh no, it's a trick question. PC was the one we were going for.
Well, all right.
No, I also wanted to say, Ben, that I won't keep you any longer, but I also won't kick you out. We've given you the driver of the round because, frankly, you've been superb from start to finish in the championship so far. And we needed to give you it at some point. You drove brilliantly, and you gave us some entertainment in that second race as well, finally. So we decided to give you driver of the round.
Oh, thank you very much.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations, Ben, on the driver of the round and the double race victory, as per usual, as well. We'll be speaking to you next week, I'm sure.
See you soon.
There you go, then. Make life difficult for yourself, and you could walk away with an extra prize at the end of the night. Well done, Ben, though, on 2 more great results. Paul Laramie, second place again. He just can't be beaten, can he? I mean, you put up a really, really solid defence that time. You gave it your all, didn't you? We could see that.
Yeah, I was trying everything I could. I just left a bit too much room coming out one of the corners, and he got up the inside. But it was a good fun driving past. It was trying to get past John. I was hoping to get past a bit earlier to get a bit of a gap, because John can be tough to pass at times. I was hoping to get past a little bit earlier on, but didn't quite get past. He caught up, and yeah, it was good fun, good to battle. And then just once I got past John, it was just second place and maintain the space.
There was some really, really good racing actually between you and John, and then you and Ben as well. Is Ben someone you enjoy racing wheel to wheel with? Obviously frustrating because he's hard to keep behind, but when you do have battles on track, it usually looks pretty lively.
Yeah, it is, and it's good racing with Ben because you don't feel like he's going to hit you off or take something that's out of the. It's close, it's fast, but yeah, it's good. It's good to race with him.
Thoughts on next week then? We head abroad again for the second time this season to Paul Ricard, a very different kind of track. Anything in that circuit that you think might give you that little edge you're searching for?
It's not what we've done for a little while, but I do enjoy racing there. So, well, then first, I might probably enjoy most of the racetracks we go to. So, I'm probably the opposite of Nicky and Kyle in that way. I don't mind which one we race at as long as we're racing at them. So, yeah, it's a good track. It's good fun to drive. So, let's see how we get on.
There we go. A bit of positivity at last. That's what we like to hear, Paul. Always a pleasure to chat to you. We'll see you again next week.
Good, Andy. See you later on. Bye.
And finally, hopefully we'll get a chat with him this time. John Jones joins us in the commentary box, and he can catch up now with Jack.
Yeah, just to make sure, John, that we have you. Are you there?
Hello, good evening.
Oh, fantastic. I'll tell you what, John, it's always a pleasure to have a chat to you. That race looked very, very stressful from your perspective.
Not particularly.
Oh!
If you got a lighter car, it's good fun with the guys behind, because all you got to do is disrupt them in the corners, and they can't catch you on the straights, and it really annoys them.
Disrupting in the corners is probably the most PC way of putting that battle. And yeah, it did look like good fun though, didn't it? I mean, obviously you were battling with the likes of Paul, you were battling with Ben, and but also you were sort of traveling further forward. And I thought at one point you were going to become a real headache for the GT3s. Going into Agostini, you sort of stage exit right and went round the outside a little bit. Was that a mistake, or was that a bit intentional?
No, I mean, I kind of saw them coming, and at the end of the day, keep out the way of the GT3s if you can. There's no point trying to interrupt them. And I could see on the radar, the GT4 boys were quite a way behind, so it was all under control at that stage.
All under control is something we like to say, like to hear. Sorry, John. Lastly, as well, your battle with Chris Blakey that lit our screens up for quite some time. That looked like a really good. Part of.
Yeah, we had a battle last week, and I got one over on him last week, so I just wanted to do the same again this week. So I just made sure that I disrupted him when I could, and I knew I was lighter and I could pull away, and all was good.
Well, it was exciting from our perspective, John. Always entertaining to keep an eye on you, and a pleasure to chat to you as well. So, congratulations on the 3rd place. Hopefully, we'll speak to you again next week.
Yeah, many thanks, guys.
Excellent stuff. There we go then. So that's our racing done at Snetterton. Then we head, as I said, next time abroad to the south of France. If only, Jack, if only we were heading for the south of France. It's the perfect time of year to be doing so, but we'll have to settle for the virtual version. The Circuit Paul Ricard, the venue now for the French Grand Prix once again. We'll be running on the full Grand Prix layout for our penultimate round of the championship. It's almost time to break out the calculators, Jack, and figure out who can win the championship perhaps around early. Carl Felvis and Ben Smith will both be going there, I'm sure, with that in mind. But it's one of those circuits which always produces good racing, and I'm hoping, therefore, from a neutral perspective, a bit of unpredictability.
Yeah, I'm going to correct you very quickly there, and it's time for you to whip out your calculator. I think we all know that's the deal. And your magic spreadsheet, to be honest with you, far quicker than I could ever do. Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. I think Paul Ricard, wherever we go there, it seems to bring really nice racing, and obviously lots of overtaking opportunities, just like what we had at Snetterton. It's nice twisty stuff as well. The GT3s will be really put to the test. Lots of aero. It's going to be very, very exciting. But again, as flat as you like. So maybe the ballast won't hurt Carl Felvis and the rest of them quite so much as it did at the likes of Oulton Park. But it should be an exciting one, that's for sure. But I think we're pretty much ready to wrap up, Andy. It's been an absolute pleasure once again.
It has, always is. And we will be back again next week, as we said. Weeks of racing to go, then it's Christmas, and then we go endurance racing. So plenty to look forward to here at the VRRC. It's been great to have you along with us this evening. We'll see you again next week as we head towards the closing stages of what's been a very exciting championship.